guys, welcome back to Angie's Table. I am not Angie, I am Angie's sister. I will be talking about my pregnancy journey along with some pregnancy tips that I think might be helpful for those of you who are pregnant. Alright, so if you guys couldn't tell, right now I am in our baby's nursery. Kevin and I are trying to quickly make it look really nice. So we'll make sure to release that video once everything gets in and everything is settled. To start, I will be talking about my pregnancy journey, starting off with deciding and trying to get pregnant. So I was very on and off about when I wanted to start trying to get pregnant, and I think that I kind of changed my mind every month just because I was like, oh well, you know what, we missed out on like a year or two because of COVID, so I just want to have some time with just me and Kevin. But when we finally decided that it was the right time for us to settle down, I think I was convinced that I was pregnant every month that we were trying, and it was quite the emotional roller coaster. In total, we were probably trying for about 5 months. The first 2 months, we were kind of just testing the waters to see if we could get pregnant without using like ovulation strips and things like that. My cycle was whack. When we first started trying, my normal cycle was around like 27 to 29 days. And that month, after trying for the first time, my cycle day was 36 days. So I was convinced that I was pregnant. I was having symptoms, but I think as the time progressed, I just learned that, you know what, like your symptoms are variable with PMS, and there were symptoms that I never knew that I even had. I didn't know I got ovulation cramps, and sometimes that could be mistaken with implantation cramps. Then the third month, I finally got ovulation strips and I started to test, but I wasn't consistently tracking my ovulation, which then makes it a little bit difficult because then I'm just kind of guessing when I'm ovulating, and that wasn't very helpful. And the fourth and fifth month, I was consistently tracking and we were consistently putting in the effort to really get pregnant. So I feel like by the fourth month, when I found out that I was not pregnant, I think this was probably the hardest month for me because I just thought it would be easy to have a child. I don't think I ever realized how much of a miracle it is to be pregnant. And I think people are so fortunate to get pregnant so quickly and right away, but there are so many of you guys that are struggling out there. I felt like I was struggling, but I'm sure I'm nothing compared to those people that are out there that are consistently struggling to bear a child. And I just want you guys to know that you're not alone in this and that there's such a big support group out there. And if you guys need support, just let me know as well. I'll be there for you guys. In the fifth month, we finally got pregnant. And when I tested that morning, it was ironic because Essie had woken us up around 6 o'clock on the day that I was going to test. I was waiting until 1 week after my expected missed period to test, and I was going to wake up and test, but Essie had actually woken us up around 6 a.m. to throw up just out of nowhere. I guess she was having my morning sickness for me, but she woke up and puked. So as we were cleaning that up, I was like, well, we're up already, so I'm just gonna go ahead and try testing. I went to the bathroom, peed on the stick, and then I left it. And then when I came back and I saw the 2 pink lines, they were very strong. But I think I was happy and I expected it and I was relieved, but I don't think that I was necessarily overjoyed. And this is something that I was kind of confused about with my emotions, especially because I have been so emotional up until that point in trying to get pregnant. But when it actually happened, I think it just didn't hit me. So right away, I didn't try to surprise Kevin. I mean, he was right there cleaning up Essie's puke and being very upset at her. But when I showed it to Kevin, he just looked at it and looked at me and with like a confused look, and it didn't hit him right away. And then when I was like, we're pregnant, he was overjoyed. I think Kevin was overjoyed for the both of us, and it was a very exciting time, but I kind of just felt like an emotion of relief rather than joy. Of course, I was very happy, but I think it was more relief than happiness. Next, I will be talking about pregnancy symptoms. I didn't experience symptoms right away. Around 7 weeks, I was getting really bad constipation. And this was something that I had constipation here and there, so it wasn't usually that big of a deal for me, but I had a very painful experience. Ever since then, I started to make sure that I was eating appropriately and adding things to my diet that was helping my bowel movements. So I will talk about that a little bit later because that is one of my tips. The other symptoms that I was having, around 8 weeks, I started getting nauseous, and it was not to the point where I was puking. I maybe puked like twice in my whole pregnancy in that time, just because I was just gagging a lot, and sometimes it triggered it. But for the most part, I was just constantly nauseous, and it was all day, every day, and it just never stopped. It was really, really miserable, and I felt like that's why my first trimester went by so quickly, because I was just miserable and I was in bed most of the time. And because my nausea was so bad, I also was not eating appropriately, and I was losing weight, and I had so many aversions and no cravings, and it was kind of just not what I expected in my pregnancy. But some of the aversions that I was having was to meat, more so chicken than any other meat, but I just didn't want to eat any meat. And then another one was coffee, which in a way was good because I shouldn't be consuming caffeine. So it was actually easy for me to quit cold turkey because I couldn't stand the smell of it, to the point where Kevin couldn't even make coffee in the house because I would just get so triggered by it, and I would just be in bed all day because I couldn't get that smell out of my nose or my head or whatever. Another one is like garlic and soy sauce. Anything that was too strong. I mean, I love Indian food and I love Korean food. I could not have any of that in most of my first trimester. Going into the second trimester, like, I just couldn't stand the smell of it. I was having severe aversions to the point where I couldn't have anything cooking in my house, not even the microwave, because everything just triggered me. It was so miserable because even when Angie and I were filming, obviously Angie's going to be using a lot of garlic and onion, and I have to pretend that it smells really good, but in reality I'm pregnant, and so I'm like dying because the smell is not good at that moment when it usually is. So yeah, it was kind of difficult. First trimester was not fun at all for me. But around 18 weeks is when I significantly felt like my nausea was dying down. My appetite was coming back. My aversions were going away. My cravings were starting to kick in. When we did our gender reveal, well, we did our gender reveal a little bit earlier, but I don't think the pregnancy really started hitting me until the gender reveal, until I knew the gender of our baby. That was kind of crazy, but then I think the moment that it was really hitting me more was when my belly started growing around 18 weeks. My nausea was going away, and around maybe like 20 weeks, I was starting to feel some fluttering and movements in my tummy, and around 22 weeks, she was just getting stronger. And now, at this time, we are 23 weeks pregnant, and she's just getting stronger every moment. And honestly, some of the things that trigger it are certain voices. I don't know why she responds to Angie's voice, but she does. And music. So I've been trying to listen to a lot of different types of music to see what she would move to. Foods that I'm craving right now too are more similarly aligned with what Angie typically likes to eat. So yeah, so that's kind of the running joke right now, is that I'm bearing my sister's child. In my second trimester, now I don't really experience too much nausea. I do kind of feel a little bit of heartburn here and there, especially at nighttime. So I try not to eat too late at night because it really triggers heartburn and nausea. So that is my pregnancy journey so far, and we will be moving into the pregnancy tips now. All right, so now to talk about pregnancy tips, I will just be talking about 3 points today because I can go on and on about pregnancy tips, and it's just going to be so boring for you guys, but I'm just going to base it off of my own pregnancy experience and just give you guys 3 things that was very relatable to me. Before I talk about it though, I want to put a disclaimer out there that I am not an expert in this field and I am not an OBGYN, so any of this kind of sounds like something you need to talk to your OB about. That's something that I would definitely go ahead and do. To start, so this is something that I did before I learned that I was pregnant. When I was trying to get pregnant, I actually started looking into my skincare and my makeup to make sure that there were no harmful chemicals in there that would potentially harm the baby if I were to get pregnant. So I went and used this one site called 15 Minute Beauty. This has been kind of my holy grail for checking products online to see like what the ingredients, if there's harmful ingredients in there and things like that. So I went ahead and went onto the 15 Minute Beauty site. It seems like a lot of the skincare that I was using was already pretty safe. So I actually didn't have to change most things out. And if you guys want a list of the things that I use, including the makeup, I will go ahead and give that to you guys. Just let me know down in the comments below. The one thing that I did need to change was sunscreen. This is something that's very, very important, even if you're not pregnant, is to make sure that you're adding a sunscreen into your skincare because the sun is so harmful for your skin. And I have very sensitive skin, and I used to have a sun allergy when I was younger where I would just hive up from too much sun exposure. And actually in my pregnancy, it actually came back when I was in Hawaii and was getting too much sun exposure. Even with a lot of sunscreen slathered on, it just wasn't sufficient. My skin just started reacting poorly. The second tip that I have, and this is something I talked about a little bit earlier, it pertains to constipation, which is a very common symptom of pregnancy. And if you kind of leave it alone for a long period of time, it's only going to get worse. And I feel like I went through the worst constipation ever early on in my pregnancy. So the thing that I found was very helpful was to consume prunes. And this is something that my aunt actually gave me. She learned that I was experiencing really painful constipation, so she had dropped off some prunes for me to consume. And I swear, you take 1 serving of those prunes and you're on the toilet like immediately. Like, it works so well, and it just kind of helps your bowel movements, but also like it forms your poops too. So like it's really, really helpful, and it's not even medicine, right? And I've tried a lot of different medications that were okayed by my OB, but they just don't work. And I honestly think I would rather improve my diet to have better bowel movements than to medicate myself while I'm pregnant. The second thing that I kind of came across was kiwis. I was just having a very strong craving for kiwis, and I've been really loving fruit during this pregnancy. So my mom bought me a box of kiwis, and I started eating a kiwi a day, and that's just been normalizing my bowels very, very well. So I eat almost a kiwi a day now, and my bowels are fine. I mean, I haven't really been experiencing much constipation. If anything, I think I experienced less constipation than when I was not pregnant. So my third pregnancy tip is regarding nausea. And this is something that I don't know if I ever successfully defeated because I was just nauseous constantly. But there are things to help, and I'm not going to be talking about like the medication portion because obviously you can get that information from your OB, but I did try a couple medications to help my nausea and none of it helped. So I had to go ahead and find out my own ways to try and tackle this symptom. And one of the things that I found very helpful was Preggy Pops, and I bought these off of Amazon. It's obviously it was temporary, like it was only while you were taking the lozenge and maybe a little bit after. Even those like 10-15 minutes of no nausea was such a joyous moment for me. So if you need that, I would highly recommend Preggy Pops. The second thing was mint and gum. So my OB office actually gave me a little tin of mints, and whenever I would eat, I didn't like the taste and the smell of the food in my mouth, so I would always pop a mint, and that seemed to help my nausea a little bit better. Another tip regarding nausea is to make sure you're eating when you're hungry, because I do find that being hungry actually triggers your nausea. And when you're pregnant, you're kind of insatiable. You're just constantly hungry. So just make sure that you always have some snacks on hand. Make sure that you're not missing a meal. So yeah, so make sure you're eating, but I would also say choose healthier alternatives for snacks, because obviously certain snacks and processed foods are going to make you feel worse. Favorite thing to snack on was grape tomatoes, peaches, kiwis, and things like that. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys have any questions or comments, don't forget to leave it down below, and we'll see you on our next video.